Hello, hello. It's my 30th birthday month. And today I'll be unpacking 20 life lessons that I learned in my 20s. My 20s felt like an emotional roller coaster, as I know it did for everyone. On one hand, I feel like such a different person than I did turning 20, but on the other hand, I feel like I'm closer to who I am at my core than I was when I turned 20. Reflecting for this episode was really powerful for me because it made me reflect on some of the things that I struggled with in the past decade, the coping mechanisms I found, and the mantras that I repeat and continue to repeat to myself as I go into my 30s. I hope anyone watching this gleans even one helpful tidbit that may help them get through a tough day. I don't have answers necessarily, just what has and what continues to work for me. If nothing more, I hope this is a reminder that you're not alone in however you're feeling. As a quick introduction, I'm Kimmy. I work in consulting in New York City, and welcome to On Our Way, a channel where we talk about navigating careers and life through the lens of being women. 20 life lessons is a lot to unpack, so without further delay, let's get on our way. Number 1, bet on yourself. Bet on yourself in calculated ways to get yourself closer to your vision board life. In my early 20s, I was in a job, a city, and relationships that I knew just weren't really fits for me. When I did my 5-year vision board, literally none of my current situation was in that vision board. And that was a little depressing because that was like 80% of my life from ages 22 to 24 that I just knew wasn't a fit. I know if I was watching this 6 years ago, I'd say, okay, well, how do you know if something's not a fit? And I would say, if you could design your vision board life without limits, would your current job, your current friends that you're hanging out with on a Friday night, would the current city that you're in be on that board? If the answer to any of those questions is no, not really, then I think your 20s is the perfect time to make those changes and get closer to that vision board life for yourself. For me, this was leaving a job and a city that I knew wasn't in my vision board life. It doesn't make it easy, but for me, I am glad I made that move to, for me, it was New York City, starting in my current position when I did, rather than when, I got a dog or, fiance, whatever it is, before I came a little bit more set in my ways. Moving or leaving a job, finding new friends, all of these are risks. And I'm not advocating for, up and quitting your job without having something else lined up, unless you have like a trust fund or something. But I am advocating for betting on yourself. I know it changed the trajectory of my life, and I guarantee you it won't be a mistake. Number 2, find your own happiness. It's no one else's responsibility to make you happy and fulfilled. Jennifer Garner on Molly Sims' podcast recently said her mom would tell her and her sisters that, quote, happiness is your own responsibility. It's not your parents, it's not your friends, it's not your partners, it's yours. Early in my 20s, I would put a lot of pressure on external factors to bring me happiness, whether it was friends or romantic partners. And often it left me disappointed that people weren't living up to my expectations of how they should be treating me. Once I stopped putting my happiness in external forces, I realized that power is way more comforting and reassuring than anyone else could be to me. It actually strengthened my relationships because there was less pressure on someone else to do the job that only I could do. This outlook also pretty quickly made me realize the relationships that don't serve me, because I no longer needed them to fulfill my happiness. I was happy in my own right, and if I enjoyed their company, great. But if I didn't, then that was that. Number 3, that 10 pounds will not change a thing. Like most girls in their 20s, I used to put a lot of stock in how skinny I was, and I would tie that up with my happiness. For instance, if I lose 10 pounds by summer, I'll have just, the best summer ever. Throughout my 20s, though, I observed that my happiness is not correlated to my weight at all. Now, I'm not saying healthy versus not healthy. It's very important to eat well and, get regular exercise from a longevity point of view. But strictly trying to be skinny won't change a thing. When I was the heaviest I've been, I met my now fiance. And when I was the skinniest I've been, it was COVID, and I was stressed about my job and, friends, relationships, and I don't know, maybe getting some mysterious disease that no one knew anything about. Your body is the least interesting thing about you, I promise. Your weight will not change a thing. Be healthy, find what works for you, and let that be where your thoughts around your body end. Number 4, her being so something doesn't make you not anything. I think it's pretty natural, especially as women, unfortunately, to compare ourselves to others. Society from a pretty young age has painted that trope for us time and time again that women compete with one another. But I'm here to remind you, and myself obviously, that her being so something, so her being so pretty, smart, funny, has no impact on you whatsoever. Her being so smart doesn't change your intelligence. Her being so pretty does not make you any less pretty. It's easy to lose sight of that and turn a compliment for someone else into a dig about yourself. But practicing celebrating others and leaving it at that in turn is a practice of celebrating yourself and not practicing that self-doubt and comparison. Number 5, be your own best friend. The only thing or being that you're with your entire life is yourself. You could be in a job for 15 years or in a relationship for 40 years, but when you turn 60, the thing or being that you've spent the most time with is still going to be you, especially in your 20s when your friend groups could be changing. Maybe someone's going back to school, changing of careers. The only consistency likely will be you. Find ways to be your own best friend and to cultivate that relationship. For me, this is carving out me time to do things that I really enjoy doing. It could be writing episodes for my YouTube or going to my favorite spin class, maybe taking my dog on a nice long walk by the water. Spending that quality time with myself without distractions in environments where I thrive always renews my appreciation for myself. Impress yourself. Show yourself that you can do hard things. Maybe it's pushing yourself in a workout class. Take that time to impress yourself and appreciate yourself more than taking the time to try to impress other people. I think everyone should strive to take the time to genuinely enjoy their own company because that's the company you're with forever. Number 6, love yourself first. Hand in hand with being your own best friend is learning to love yourself. In my early 20s, as I've alluded to, I felt like I was attracting, people in general that didn't appreciate me for me. When I would let my guard down, maybe be goofy or talk about some random topic that I was really intrigued by at the moment, I would feel really alone. Even when I was in, a group of people, I just felt like they were kind of waiting for me to get back to normal. Like they'd kind of ignore me and then be like, okay, when is she going to get back to how we think someone should act? It wasn't until I was like, screw them all. Like I love me and that's enough, that I felt like pretty all of a sudden I was starting to attract people that did love me and my random quirks. We attract the familiar. If we're telling ourselves negative things or if we're not hyping ourselves up, we're going to attract that because it's weirdly comforting. No one does this on purpose, but to have loving relationships, you need to love yourself first. Number 7, quality friendships over quantity acquaintances. Take your 20s to take stock in your friendships and who you're giving your time to. As you get older, you realize that time is really the great equalizer. We all have a set amount of it in a day. In my early 20s, I used to get really down on myself for not having a ton of friends. I've always been someone that has a few really close friends. But with social media, I'd see girls out with like 10 friends, a 10-person brunch. And I'd get really down on myself because I'm like, I do not have 10 girls that I'm, texting or making plans with consistently. Throughout my 20s, though, for me, I realized that relationships are more meaningful when they are quality friendships rather than just a lot of different acquaintances. Coming to this realization gave me the courage to focus my time on the friends that I really do enjoy, talking to or spending time with, and recognizing the ones that I don't necessarily. It helped me choose who I put my time into to build those closer relationships and made me more so appreciate my very closely knit but smaller circle. Number 8, done is better than perfect. I heard this quote from Janelle Teves, I hope I'm saying her name right, a corporate executive and mom on Instagram I follow. The timing or product may never be perfect. For instance, with these videos, I can get a bit in my head, like are the edits clean? Is this thumbnail catchy? But if I fine-tuned my videos as much as I wanted to, I'd probably release one every 6 months and refilm them probably like half a dozen times. It's not worth it. When it's mostly there and I'm proud of it, I have to just click upload and stop the bleeding. In your 20s, you may be looking to make maybe a career pivot or go back to school. And I think you can wait for the timing to be mostly right, but then you just got to bet on yourself and make it happen. Without that mentality, you'll be ruminating over decisions. Get on your way to your vision board life and just go. Number 9, diversify your life. If you've watched my personal finance videos, which I'll link here, you'll know that I prescribe to diversification of your portfolio. For instance, having money in ETFs, treasuries, having some money in high yield savings, and so on. In other words, don't just put all of your eggs in one basket. Just as you wouldn't put all of your money into Apple stock, for instance, don't put all of your time and happiness into just one aspect of your life. No one thing is going to be able to sustain that pressure. I can guarantee you that long term, your best friend, your partner, your job, your apartment won't be the sole thing that brings you happiness. You need to diversify and make sure that you're watering all aspects of your life properly. Now, there may be seasons where for a couple months, you're swamped with work, but overall, try to average out where you're putting your energy. What if your company goes under or you get laid off? If that was your whole sense of self, you're going to be left feeling pretty isolated and alone. Similarly, if your best friend who you see every day has to move and they were the only relationship you cultivated, where are you left? Life isn't meant to be all about one thing. You need diversification in your life to have a fulfilled and dimensional experience. For me during COVID, I really only hung out with my sister and my fiance. And let me tell you, that put a lot of pressure on those relationships. Your family and your romantic partners aren't meant to be the only focus of your life for obvious reasons. Once I realized I was getting a bit too insular, taking up hobbies and seeing friends again once it was safe really took the pressure off of those relationships. Number 10, research the unknown. If you're worried about something, research it. Get the facts to demystify whatever it is that you're scared of. I promise the more facts you have, the less scared you'll feel. As an example, when my now fiance and I were starting to talk about when we'd want kids and if we'd want to raise them in the city and all that, I would get really stressed about childcare. Now, this is years away and by no means an imminent thing, but I thought it was just something that was impossible until I started researching. I got average prices of daycares, nannies, night nurses, and went down many rabbit holes to understand what that picture would look like to raise kids in New York City. In New York City, it is very expensive. There is no getting around that, but demystifying that unknown factor for me really has calmed my nerves. Now I don't get heart palpitations when we talk about it because I know kind of the ballpark or what that would look like. I'd encourage anyone to research whatever it is that's stressing them out. Maybe it's moving and not knowing how much movers would cost. Research movers and rent and broker's fee, all of that, so you don't let the unknown hold you back. Number 11, genuine is the best personality trait. In high school, college, postgrad, there's such a need to fit in. Wear clothes everyone else is wearing, act like how you feel like everyone else is acting, but it's just that, it's acting. For me, I felt like everyone was really good at small talk, that intro, hey, what's your name? What do you do for work? All of that. The tough part for me is I am a very curious person. I want to ask someone questions about their life and get to know them, but I would think the fact that small talk or that kind of intro portion stressed me out so much, I thought it was hindering me from getting to know people. It gave me such social anxiety to meet new people because I felt like they would know how to do this socially acceptable thing that I wouldn't do, which was that, intro small talk. Then my fiance was like, who cares? If you want to ask someone deeper questions right off the bat, obviously within the realm of, being respectful of someone, go for it because that's who you are and that's genuine to you. And then you are more yourself right off the bat. And then they know kind of what they're getting themselves into. Someone that is a very curious person that will ask them a lot of questions about their life. This has helped me now being in a group of people not have that social anxiety and knowing that I can ask someone right away, do you like your job? Do you see yourself in New York long term? Some of those bigger questions that I'm, more curious about than just how is your commute here and stuff like that. In being genuine, I found that it's easier to make friends because I'm accepting of myself and therefore, as we talked about, I've attracted people that are also accepting of me and accepting of my maybe sometimes awkward silences as well. The best way to get around those social anxieties is being genuine, no matter what that may look like for you. Number 12, their 20s are hard for everyone. Especially with the use of social media, it can pretty quickly feel like, am I the only one that doesn't love their job or doesn't have a ton of friends or doesn't, travel all the time? For the billionth time, social media is not real. For me, I used to get really down on myself about my adorable little rescue pup. Meet Hitchy. I got him when he was 4. Before that, he was in kennels and he wasn't getting adopted out. And the adoption agency that I got him from told me that he's good with everything, dogs, kids, cats, and so on. But those were lies. He gets stressed with other dogs and doesn't really want them coming into his space. And let me tell you, that is really tough when I have to take him in an elevator down 28 floors in a very dog-friendly building for a bathroom break. I used to see my friends on social media with their, seemingly perfect dogs at breweries with other dogs around and get really down on myself. Why me? Why is everyone else seemingly having such an easier time with this than I am? What is wrong with me? Over time, though, I realized literally nothing is wrong with me. And all of those people that I see on social media with their seemingly perfect dogs, they all have stuff going on too. Just like the rest of us. And you don't post on social media when your dog misbehaves or you've had a fight with your boyfriend or maybe you've had a really tough day at work. You're posting usually more about the positive things. We all have things we struggle with no matter what social media looks like. The best thing you can do is be kind to yourself. Stop the comparisons and take matters into your own hands. For me, that was getting more serious about dog training, doing a board and train, finding a dog trainer that's local so I feel like I have the support and work to make my situation better. Now, Mr. Hitch has been part of the family for 5 years and he still has his struggles, as we all do, but he's doing better than ever. I will say there's been nothing like having that unconditional love to get me through, relationships, moving, changing jobs, all the craziness that comes with your 20s. And he's been there for most of it and loved me unconditionally throughout it all. I am very proud of myself for, sticking through the tough times. And when all is said and done, I've proved to myself that I can do really hard things and not give up on myself or on him. Number 13, get your finances in order. Your 20s are likely the first time that you've been completely independent. No one is looking over your shoulder to be like, can you pay rent or can you buy groceries? It's all on you. For a lot of us, that's really intimidating. We can just kind of feel like, okay, if I can pay rent and buy groceries, then I'm doing fine. That's the viewpoint that I had with my finances a couple years out of college, and I found that I was being very reactive instead of proactive in planning for my future. No one is going to come save you and your finances. It will never get easier or simpler than it is right now when you don't have a mortgage, kids, or a partner that you're divvying up accounts with. Take this time to invest in your future self by putting money in savings, opening a Roth IRA, paying down any debt, investing in ETFs and I-bonds, and check out my personal finance video for more helpful tips and tricks. You'll feel more empowered when you've taken the time to research and taking control of your situation, whatever that may be. Number 14, pay the village. Emma Grede has said that it takes a village and she's not ashamed to pay that village. Once you get your finances in order and you have a better sense of your spending habits and any discretionary income you have, if there are reoccurring tasks that you do that are maybe worth $20 an hour and you have $20 to spend, I am all about farming those out so you can spend time on more value add activities. For me, this was hiring a dog walker. When I go into the office, I would have to wake up a good hour earlier to make sure my dog still got, a 45-minute walk to get all of his little wiggles out before he was going to be home alone most of the day. Post-COVID, as I started ramping up my in-office days, this really took a toll on me, having to get, 1 hour less of sleep. Now my fiance and I split a dog walker on the days that we're going into the office, just so the morning is a little bit less of a scramble. I used to get really down on myself, like other people can make this work by themselves, like why can't I? But most of the time you don't know what help other people are getting, for one, and for two, who cares? If you can comfortably pay the village and buy back some of your time, which as we talked about is such a limited resource, then why not do it? Number 15, don't let fear of judgment control you. We can let ourselves get so held back by worrying what people will think. But as my mom used to tell me, you wouldn't worry so much about what people think about you if you knew how little they did. How often are you going through your life and just randomly judging people? Probably not much at all. So why do we assume that when we step outside of our apartment, people are judging us? They aren't. They're just commuting to work thinking about probably their own outfit. Before posting my first YouTube, I was so nervous what people would think. I kept coming back to what would people from high school think? I've been out of high school since 2013, so why should I care what anyone from that chapter of my life that I don't talk to thinks about me? Don't let fear of judgment from people that don't have any authority over your life control you. They don't have that power. And anyone that loves and cares about you will want you to be happy, no matter if that's starting a YouTube channel or wearing a daring outfit. If anyone judges, it's a reflection of them and an insecurity in themselves. It's not anything about you. Number 16, don't make excuses. This includes making excuses for yourself and for others. Starting first with making excuse for others, early in your 20s, it's hard to stand up for yourself. You're still navigating your relationship with yourself, so you most likely will be attracting people, as we've talked about, that probably don't show up for you. To quote an age-old saying, if he wanted to, he would. We can change those pronouns, but if someone wanted to hang out with you or if your manager wanted you to get promoted, then they would make it happen. The end. No further excuses required. Early in my 20s, like most of us, I would tell myself some creative excuses as to why someone wouldn't show up for me, but that just kept me in unhealthy relationships and workplaces for way too long. When someone shows you who they are, listen and don't make excuses for them. Similarly, don't make excuses for yourself. Take ownership of your actions, decisions, and the consequences that come with it. If you can't be honest with yourself about shortcomings, you'll be limiting your growth and chances for honest relationships. Number 17, find your things. Find your things that mentally stimulate you and lean into them. I used plural things on purpose here. I usually only hear find your passion, find your thing, find your sense of purpose, all singular, which of course puts a lot of pressure on whatever that thing may be, similar to what we spoke about earlier with diversifying your life in general. For me, I always loved my job at my current company since I started 5 years ago. I'm in consulting, and more specifically, I help clients stand up internal IT controls to ensure their financial data is complete and accurate. The why being when they use that data to report to shareholders, investors, and so on, it's reliable data that they're working with. A lot of my clients are either newly public or pre-IPO clients, so helping them get ready to go public when they will have to be reporting those numbers with a lot more rigor. To me, it's really interesting because you have to understand not only their IT systems, but also their overall business. How do they make money and get that down to where the data lives. About 3 years into this current group, I started to feel really confused because I still found all of that really interesting, but I kind of started to think, is this it? Is this my thing for the rest of my career? I started to explore other passions outside of work, thinking maybe something else is my thing. For a while, that was volunteering, reading up on architecture, writing, and most recently starting this channel. I went into all of it thinking, should I pivot my career? But what I realized is I do really love my career and I do really find it interesting. I just also need other structured outlets. All that to say, if you find that your career, your 9 to 5, fully satisfies you, then amazing. But if you really love it, you just feel like you need something more, I would encourage you to, on the side, explore other opportunities. Maybe it's taking a class at night or simply reading more about a specific topic that interests you. It may not be that your full-time job just isn't for you anymore. It may be that you need to diversify your interests and find other outlets. Number 18, it's never too late. As I started getting into my later 20s, I started thinking is it too late for this? Is it too late for that? And most recently, the biggest one was starting this channel. Everyone else that I admired with this platform started podcasts or YouTube in their early 20s, some even still in college. Now it's such a saturated place. I started to think, is it a little too late for this passion? And should I put this passion out to, the little passion pasture? But it's never too late to find your passion, and success comes when it comes. Vera Wang designed her first dress at 40 years old. Samuel L. Jackson landed his first major movie role at 46, and Morgan Freeman didn't get his big break until he was 50. Explore your passions whenever you find them and just go. As we talked about earlier, you could be spinning your wheels waiting for the perfect time. You just have to go for it. I know for me, every day I'm glad I started this channel as an outlet and a platform to have amazing discussions around the human experience through the lens of being women. If I started this 6 years ago, I'm sure I'd have more subscribers and views by now. But in 6 years, I know I'll be glad I started it when I did, even if I did have some doubts. You are a baby in your 20s. You have so much life left to live. And I think it's important to remember that the majority of your life you haven't lived yet. Number 19, do what you can when you can. I used to get really down on myself if I couldn't keep up a routine. For instance, I want to work out after work, and most of the time I can, but sometimes work goes late or I have a migraine. Or there are days where I actually get more done than I thought. Maybe I worked out, took my dog on an extra long walk, and worked late. In my early 20s, I would let not doing my routine get me really down. I'd also let doing too much really stress me out because I would wonder, how am I going to keep this up? How can I eke out more productivity in future days like I did today? Now I live more so by the do what you can when you can, because you'll be glad you did when you can't. For instance, with work, if I ever have a day where I have a couple of hours, I try to get to those proactive things on my to-do list rather than just scrolling on my phone. Because I know there'll be days where maybe I don't feel well, or maybe I'm slammed with calls, and I'll be glad I did what I could then. Last but not least, number 20. Your 20s are about getting back to yourself. It's a misconception that your 20s are about finding yourself. Melinda Gates has actually said it's about getting back to yourself. When you were little, you knew who you were, but we lose ourselves to external pressures or the idea of what we should or shouldn't be. Now, I'm not saying to be the person you were when you were 15. You did not have a frontal lobe, and it showed. But get back to whatever brings you joy. It's probably always been similar things. For me, it's getting outside, being with dogs, traveling, and honestly, dissecting life as a woman in this society. I went to an all-girls high school, so this is just drilled into me. Strip away that judgment, find what makes you happy, and bet on yourself. You'll be shocked how quickly you feel whole when you're being true to you. Thank you so much for making it to this part in the video. I hope you got a helpful tidbit that may make a tough day easier, or at least be reminded that you're not alone in however you feel. I know there's more for us to learn in our 30s, 40s, and beyond. We're just getting started. Please, please, please like and subscribe, as well as leave comments down below with life lessons you've learned in your 20s or other topics that might be helpful for us to unpack as we all continue on our way.